Right, welcome back to the Unfan Podcast and welcome to another League One fan call. And I've got to make a little bit of an apology. This was the second time that we recorded this. We had all the fans about 2 weeks ago sit down, we chatted about it, we asked them lots of different questions, and I lost the footage. I managed to lose the footage. It's been a bit of a busy week getting to university, but I'm here now. And by the way, thank you so much for all of the amazing comments. We put that video out on Sunday, and the comments, the lovely, motivational, inspirational, heartwarming messages that I received. I had, the amazing comment section, of course, but also I've had emails, DMs on Twitter, Instagram, absolutely unbelievable. And yeah, they were lovely, absolutely lovely. And I'm saying this now about 5 days since that video went live, and I've been here about 5 days now. I feel much, much better. Not perfect, but it won't be perfect. It's a long-term thing. It's a long-term adjustment, transition, but it's getting better. And if you go back and watch it, I've actually watched the sort of that bit back. I don't normally watch my podcast back. I'm not that self-indulgent, but I did go and watch that back, and it's really interesting actually looking at sort of the psychology behind it, how I felt at that point and how I feel now. Like I say, it's definitely not perfect, but the difference in myself is just enormous, absolutely enormous. And like I said, when I recorded that, it was just all about me feeling better, me feeling more comfortable and being happier, and I'm much happier now. And yeah, we're getting there. We are getting there. And those comments were absolutely pivotal in that. So thank you so much again for it. Right, let's get into it because we've got a lot of fans to chat to. Quite a long one today. But like I say, I love these fan call-ins. If you want to join these fan call-ins in the future, the best way of doing it is going over to our Discord server. Link is in the description down below. We don't just do the fan call-ins there. We do lots of other things. We talk about League One chat. We've got a League One server. Within that server, we've got an FPL chat as well. We've got lots of other things that we just chat about, everyday life. Really, we've got an amazing server there, an amazing community, and yeah, it's a really good place to be to find out all these different things that maybe you wouldn't know on screen. There's a little bit of an off-screen stuff as well, behind the scenes, if you like, some people would call it. But yeah, it's fascinating with hearing those different opinions, and that's exactly why we do this, exactly why we have a podcast, or why I have a podcast, and why hopefully we get a real discussion in the comment section once again. And no different this episode, please. Can we keep getting that amazing discussion about football in there, because it's really, really interesting to read, and you learn a lot as well. I certainly do. I'm sure lots of others will as well. Right. In this call-in, we've got Peterborough United fan, MK Dons fan, Bolton Wanderers fan, Lincoln, Ipswich, Cambridge United, and this is part one. This is part one. I believe there's going to be a part two. If there's not, there's going to be another Bolton one in here, and there's going to be probably an Oxford United one in here as well, and potentially a Plymouth. So you might have an hour and a half episode. It might be two parts, but you're going to definitely get all of those clubs. It just might be over two episodes. But either way, really, really interesting. And yeah, show support because I know you're amazing people. Subscribe if you like, if you want to see more of that. Discord servers where you want to get involved. And yeah, enjoy the episode of the podcast. Enjoy number 2 of the season for the League One fan call-ins. Right, so I'm joined by Peterborough United fan. Of course, it's got to be Jacob. I'm so sorry. I'm going to say this now. We've recorded this. This is the second time we've recorded this. This will be the second time, and I'm going to have to record every single one of these call-ins again. I've moved, of course, to uni, and didn't realise on Discord the audio files expire after a week. So I'm so sorry to everybody that got involved for the first week, or the first time we did this over a span of about a week. We've got to go again. But as Jacob pointed out before we started recording, for Peterborough United, it hasn't been an amazing last few weeks, if we're being completely honest. The last time we spoke, I believe, Jacob, and correct me if I'm wrong, we spoke around the time did you lose 2 games on the bounce, and then because you've lost 4 games since, haven't you?
Yeah. If you asked me that question, if you asked me how it's been going a month ago, would it be a completely different story, but here we are.
A lot's changed because we spoke about 2 weeks ago around that sort of time. Of course, there've been quite a few games since then, cup competitions and Tuesday night games as well. I think we spoke after the Bolton game. I don't know if you played the Fleetwood game yet. You've lost to Portsmouth, you've lost to Stevenage in the Football League Trophy, you've lost to Derby, and you've lost to Stevenage also in the EFL Cup. It's not been an amazing run of games in all competitions. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's 6 games in all competitions. Now, without a win, in fact, 6 games straight losing in all competitions. What's been going so wrong? Because at the start of the season, I mean, you picked up some decent results. You beat Sheffield Wednesday, you beat Lincoln City. Where's it going wrong? What is the problem going on at Peterborough? Because it's not a good run of form at all, really, is it?
Well, I think it's just a matter of fitness, because there's been a lot of Tuesday night games. and obviously that's quite a cramped schedule. So I've noticed that since the Tuesday night games have come in, the performances have just dipped. So I think that could be a factor, but what do I know? I mean, I'm not part of the management team, so.
What's been the difference in performance levels from the sort of the times earlier on in the season where you beat? I look at the win against Lincoln City, the win against Sheffield Wednesday, the game that I mentioned there, Morecambe, Cheltenham, who you defeated. These are games earlier in the season that you grab those 3 points. What's been the difference? Because like I say, you've lost quite a few games: Stevenage, Derby, Stevenage again, Pompey, Fleetwood, and Bolton Wanderers now. Before you beat Tottenham in the cup competition. What's been the difference in performance? Because I'm going to be honest, I look at that. There's a big difference in results. I imagine there's also a big difference in performance as well. What has been the difference in your eyes?
Well, I think one loss. So we lost to Derby in what was very tough to take because we were down to 10 men and we definitely could have won that. So that probably frustrated everyone. And then the confidence probably just went downhill. And yeah, we've gone on the loss streak. But after the first month, we all thought we were going to walk this league, but
and that's how quickly things can change. And that's how quickly things can change. I look at the games here. There's some big fixtures here. Bolton, Pompey. I look at Derby County as well. These are sides that again are going to be competing with you. We imagine to be in that top six, and of course the aim of the club being Peterborough United, having that that time of the Championship, getting relegated last season, now in League One. These are sides that also want to be getting into the Championship and getting out of this division. Those are big defeats, really. You look at the size of the football clubs, and also, like I say, the similar ambitions that they have with Peterborough United. Has it all been? Do you think confidence is the biggest factor? Because those are big games, and again, when you lose a game like Derby County, you look at the results that have followed. Do you believe that is a big factor, confidence? And if it isn't just confidence, what do you think the other factor could be? Because I look at that now thinking there's some pretty big defeats in there. Not in terms of scoreline, but in terms of the opposition you're facing.
Yeah, well, I think if we were to win on Saturday, I think confidence would definitely be the main factor, because obviously we've just come off the win against the Spurs youngsters, and
Got Port Vale, right? It's Port Vale on Saturday, isn't it?
Port Vale Saturday. So if we win on Saturday, then that probably shows that confidence is a huge factor.
Similar points to Port Vale as well. In fact, exactly the same. Both on 12 points. Both played 9 games. It's going to be an interesting one. I mean, you're 10th in the league now. I think the last time we spoke, you were probably 5th or 6th in the league table, certainly in those top 6 positions. Of course, that run has really, I think, disappointed your league standing, and of course, generally the fan base as well. Looking forward then, because like you say, Port Vale in 2 days' time is the big one. That's where you need to start getting those results back on track, and you need to start really gaining some sort of momentum, because that's what's going to kickstart the season again. You feel as though you started strong, but this sort of early dip in form is a bit of a problem. Port Vale, then MK Dons. I want to ask you a little bit about the manager really briefly, Grant McCann. What's the situation with him? Because, of course, he was at the football club. Did he join? It was last. It was last season, wasn't it? It was the middle of last season.
Season.
Grant McCann, thoughts on him? Because I look at that run now, there's going to be a few fans, I imagine, thinking, what's the situation there? I'm not saying I know anything more than the Peterborough United fans about his maybe managerial security, as Peterborough United boss. But is there a bit of a murmur there? Or do you think generally everybody seems to be on the right boat? No one's jumping ship this early.
I think a lot of fans do want him out, but I don't, because I don't think there's anyone better that we could get. Because obviously he's won this league with Hull, so he knows how to do it in this league. It's just, bad form happens to practically every team. So I don't think it's entirely his fault, and I think he shouldn't be sacked just yet.
How many games do you give him? Do you give him the MK Dons game up to there? Of course, you've got Port Vale next. I mean, the problem is, the only issue you have got is, like I say, when we counted them a second ago, that is now 6 games on the bounce. If you exclude the Tottenham Football League trophy, again, you then have to exclude one of the Stevenage games, because that was also in the same competition. Essentially, it's 5 games without a win in the EFL Cup. and in League One, all of those being defeats. You've got, again, Port Vale at home, which I expect you to win. I think a lot of people expect you to win that game at home. MK Dons away, you don't really know what MK Dons are going to be like off the back of a really good win against us. Then Burton Albion at home. These next 3 games are absolutely massive. What do you expect from these next 3 games? Do you think they have to be 3 points? And if so, how do you think you're going to go about that? Because, like I say, a bit of a test in different ways. Port Vale 13th, MK Dons 18th, but like I say, off the back of a win against Oxford. Burton, of course, I think it has been a struggling start to the season. And then if we look at the 4th game in that block, you've got Wycombe Wanderers away. Again, we know the sort of threat that Gareth Ainsworth sort of side can offer. How do you assess his next 4 games? Because I think they're going to be big. If people are talking about Grant McCann's future, I think this could be quite definitive in terms of his, I think, long-term vision as Peterborough United manager, don't you think?
Yeah, I think we have to win on Saturday, otherwise a lot of fans, potentially including me, could turn on Grant McCann.
So
MK
you could give him
Don,
up to 2 games instead of 4, essentially. It maybe could be a little bit more extreme than just the 4.
yeah. Well, I think, as you said, MK Dons, don't know what to expect from them, but we should hopefully come away with 3 points from there.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think give him 2 games. If we don't win both of those, or if we lose one of those games, then I think he should be going.
Yeah, I think that's probably not going to go down too badly wrong. I think it's probably going to be quite a fair assessment. 4 wins, 5 losses for a side, of course, with very high ambitions. Jacob, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you on again. Didn't think we were going to have you on again this early, but there you go. That's what happens with technology. It's been a pleasure to have you on. Peterborough United fan, Jacob, assessing the situation at Peterborough United. If anything, if we could take any positive from it, a lot has changed since the last time we spoke. More defeats, unfortunately, for Peterborough United. Grant McCann's future potentially under threat with some big games coming up. Jacob, thank you so much for hopping on, mate. Absolute pleasure, and apologies again.
Appreciate it.
Cheers, Jacob, mate. Take care. Thank you. Right, so I'm joined by Charlie, MK Dons fan. I'm going to do it for every single person that comes on now for the second time. Charlie, sorry, a massive apology for coming on again. However, if there's any positive we can take out of this pretty doom and gloom situation at the moment with me losing all of the recording files, things have got a little bit better for MK Dons, haven't they, Charlie? How do you assess things now? We spoke, I can't actually remember the last time, or, really what was the situation in terms of results the last time we spoke, but I know it was a pretty down place, MK Dons, in terms of the football club at the time. You lost, was it 3 games on the bounce, 1 in the Football League Trophy, lost to Bolton, lost to Exeter City away from home, and Cheltenham as well, but that, of course, been in the Football League Trophy. Really thought you were going to gain some sort of rhythm after that win against Morecambe. Now, you beat Oxford United away from home for you, of course, at home for us. I watched the game. I wasn't too pleased with the Oxford United performance, it's safe to say. But for MK Dons, things might be looking a little bit more positive. Charlie, take us away. How are you feeling now?
Much happier than I was when we last talked, which I think was just after the Exeter game. Very unhappy chappy I was then. But no, we're doing much better now. I think we've still got a lot to improve on from the Oxford game, because I feel like it could have gone either way, especially in the first half when you hit the woodwork twice. I was getting a little bit nervous there. I think if you'd put that one away, the game could have been different. But we managed to come back from that, and we did look better that game. And I think international breaks come at a perfect time for us, because that allows us more time to get onto the training ground, because our games have been called off over international break. So that's what we really
Lincoln
needed.
City is the game. Lincoln City is that the one you're missing on Saturday. That's again going to be an interesting one. Well, it would have been an interesting one. Of course, it's not taking place now, like you say, for the international breaks. Looking back at the MK Dons game against Oxford in a little bit more detail, you spoke there, maybe the game could have changed a little bit, significantly, a little bit more significantly, if we have taken those big chances in the first half. Big chance, like I say, hitting the woodwork twice in about 2 minutes. Was there a big difference in terms of performance that you saw against Oxford? Did you feel as though you saw a bit more of a? I think I think the game played a little bit more of a higher tempo. I think that was the key factor there. I think you actually knocked the ball about, made chance creation look much easier. XG was better than Oxford's, I believe, in the game. And like I say, you knocked the ball around, I think, much better. The goal came from a really good pass, split defenders, and it was actually an own goal, really. It didn't go down as an own goal, but it was a really good, well-worked move. Is that the big difference, or do you think there was still, I mean, like you said, there is still a lot to improve on. It is just one win, but was that a big factor for you? The chance creation did look better in my eyes.
Yeah, no, it was much better than in previous games, and I think a lot of that goes down to Josh McEachran. He's got his first start back since injury at the start of the season, and I think he has been, looking back now after that game against Oxford, he has been what we've been missing, because he picked up the ball, carries it, and then plays it. And he's very good at creating attacking chances for us.
It did look like he was a difference. It did. Number 6 in that midfield. He played a really good rating on SofaScore as well, and some people find that misleading, but I think it was a fair reflection. I think he did have a really good game, and like you say, it was a tidy midfield performance from both Devoy and McEachran. But I think you look at Josh McEachran in that midfield, he did look like he was almost looking to try and find something a little bit different in terms of the creativity side of things quite early on, in terms of get the ball straight away, let's try and create something, let's try and carve out a chance as quickly as possible. Whereas I think Oxford were trying too hard, we were sloppy in possession, we didn't know what to do with the ball. Whereas Josh, like I say, and like you just mentioned there, he wanted to find something and try and find an outlet as quickly as possible. I look at that back three. We spoke about it, I think, the last time we spoke. Of course, Liam Manning last season built a lot of success on that back three, the 3-4-3. Went back to almost, I don't know whether or not he's played it before, but he went to a 4 at the back, a 4-3-3. He's now gone back to a 3 at the back. What's the situation there? Is that something that I imagine, is that something to now build on and take again? Because that decision to go back to a 3-4-3, I think it could be quite important and quite pivotal.
Yeah, no, the 3-4-3 does just look a lot better. I think the lads on the pitch are much more comfortable, a lot more defensively sound. I think the 4-back, I'd like to think that it wasn't Manning trying to switch formation. It was more down to injuries, which have been a bit of a problem at the start of the season for us. But now we're back to the 5-back now, and we have looked a lot more sound and solid at the back, which is what we needed.
Some big games coming up. Lincoln City, of course, has been postponed on Saturday, but then got Peterborough United at home. That's going to be a really, really big game. I believe, is that on the following? Yeah, it's the following Saturday. Yeah. A big home game against Peterborough United. Then, of course, you've got a game between that and the Football League Trophy, but you've got Shrewsbury then away from home, and then Plymouth at home as well. You've got a big sort of 3 games, quite tough 3 games, if we're being completely honest with you. Peterborough, I just spoke to a Peterborough fan. He, again, isn't very happy with the form recently, but again, that's not going to be an easy test whatsoever. Going away from home to Shrewsbury is going to be quite a challenge, and of course, at home to Plymouth, we know the success of Plymouth so far this season. So I look at these next 3 games. I spoke about it with you before. You felt as though the bad start to the season and then a bit of a run, that 4-0 win over Morecambe could have been that real start and that real rhythm. You lost 3 games in the competitions, in all competitions you took part in the 3 games after that. And of course, now you look to be back on track against Oxford. Do you believe now that win against Oxford is going to be pivotal in building again and making sure this is the time you gain some sort of rhythm? Because I feel that's going to be really important.
Yeah. I think we've sort of started to discover where we're going to take it sort of tactically and formation wise this season. I think that win over Oxford carrying us into the international break, where we'll of course get more training and gelling, which is what Manning said he wanted us to have, and then coming into Peterborough as well, who haven't been on great form. So I think that is for us a sort of a quite ideal situation, which is what we need.
Yeah, and I hope it is for your sake, because against Oxford United, you did look good. Probably not your best performance of the season. I don't think you'll be hoping it is. But I think it was 2 sides maybe showing that their lack of confidence, but you were the better side on the day and played the much better. And like I say, going forward in those creative areas and those offensive areas, the much more fluid side. That's how I describe it. Charlie, thank you so much for coming on today. Again, should I say, absolute pleasure. It's been a bit of a whirlwind, but we finally got here and we finally got it all done. So, Charlie, you're a legend, mate. Thank you again, and we'll definitely speak soon.
Yeah, no worries. Cheers for having me.
No worries, Charlie. Take care, mate. Right, so I'm joined by Brandon, Bolton Wanderers fan. Brandon, we spoke probably, which game was it we last spoke at? We probably spoke after the 2-0 Plymouth defeat. Is that right? Was that the last time?
It was...
Because I've made it clear, I've lost the footage last time we spoke, and that was about 2 weeks ago. But it has got better. It has got better. You lost to Plymouth Argyle 2-0. You beat Crewe in the Football League Trophy. Did we speak about you beating Charlton? We
Ah,
might
yes,
have done.
it was Charlton at home. Yeah, that was
Yeah,
it.
either way, that was it was that, yeah. And either way, it wasn't looking unbelievably incredible, if we're being completely honest with you. You had just beaten Charlton, which was a really good result, and you did look like a really good outfit against Charlton, like we know you can do with the amount of quality that you've got in that squad. Since then, though, we did mention, I remember saying that you need to go from strength to strength. You need to build on that result and build on those performance levels. I'm going to be honest, I think you have done that brilliantly well, and we'll come on to where you think on that in just a second. You beat an MK Dons 2-0, you've beaten Peterborough 1-0, you did lose to Tranmere in the Football League Trophy, but who cares? I certainly don't. I don't think you either. I look at the league, and that's the most important thing we're here to talk about. You have gone on a really good run. Charlton, MK Dons, Peterborough, very, very difficult run, if we're being honest, in terms of the quality of opposition. That's going to be a tough run. And you've come away with it. You know, the last the 2 games we spoke about, or weren't able to speak about because they haven't been played yet. You get a clean sheet, scored 3 goals, come away with 6 points. Big game, of course, being postponed at the weekend, but then at home to Lincoln City. But coming back to those recent games, how do you break those down? Because I have been very impressed. You have built on that result against Charlton, like we spoke about last time you're on here.
Yeah. Last time, obviously, when I came on a couple of weeks ago, I said that I want to see us play. I want to see a result against good teams. It's okay getting the wins against your Morecambes, Wycombes, them kind of teams. I want to see us play a good team and beat them, get points them. Yeah, I mean, to be honest, when we beat Charlton, I was quite unimpressed by them. I feel like their goal came from our own mistake, which has been the story of many times of our season. But again, Peterborough the week after, I feel like they weren't that good either. I don't know whether that was because we made them look bad or whether because they just weren't poor. I expected a lot more from Peterborough, especially going forward. But it's the same old where we control possession, we create chances. We don't exactly take every chance we make because we just haven't got clinical strikers. That's just how it is. And I would love, for example, a Clark Harris who plays for Peterborough. But yeah, we have got slightly better. But I do still think there is a lot of improvement when it comes to the finishing and finishing games off against better teams.
We'll come on to the finishing against the better sides now. Actually, you've led that on really well because we spoke about it last time. Remember, we chatted about it briefly. We spoke about how I think it was really important that I think, if we're being completely honest, the biggest downfall has been that finishing department. We look at the results; some of them have been, it hasn't been. Last time we spoke, it wasn't an awful start to the season. It was a little bit inconsistent. You dropped points to Plymouth. If we go back to the fixtures before that, you had 1 games of football. You beat Wycombe comfortably, but then you lost to Sheffield Wednesday. It just was quite an up and down start to the campaign. But the finishing department was the consistent thing in what was an inconsistent start to the season, if that makes sense. A consistent problem ultimately. Dion Charles was injured for the first part of this early start to the season. Now he's come back in. He played against Peterborough, of course, didn't score. But we know that Dion Charles is a really good number 9. He's somebody that did well at Accrington Stanley. You brought him in. He made an instant impact when you signed him in January. Hasn't again had the opportunity to really kickstart this year. I'm sure it will come. Again, he's only still building up on that fitness. However, that number 9 that you mentioned there is really, really important. Or should I say the lack of number 9. I got a little bit of stick in the comment section from a Bolton Wanderers fan about my thoughts on is it Kunchungo? Is it Kunchunga? How do you pronounce his name?
Yeah,
Kunchunga. I definitely, mate, I think I got it wrong. And again, I didn't watch the game, so you're gonna have to tell me. But someone in the comments of the episode I did, and we spoke about the Bolton Peterborough game, I said, look, I think they are lacking that number 9. Look, they only won the game 1-0. You were creating chances across that 90. If Dion Charles isn't going to score the goals, who's going to do it? I said Kunchunga probably isn't going to be up to it. And if he is going to be up to it, again, there needs to be some improvement, and they probably are lacking that next figure of number 9 with Charles. Someone said Kunchunga had an absolutely brilliant game in the way that maybe his off the ball stuff was quite pivotal. Thoughts on that? Was I wrong?
Yeah, right. So this is my view on Kunchunga. Right. Now, I think this might sound ridiculous, but he reminds me of a Jesse Lingard, where off the ball, he's a good runner. He makes space for other players. He likes to, pull defenders out of, their natural positions. He likes to create space from that. On the ball, he's just not strong enough. He makes wrong decisions. He loses the ball all the time. He's always on the floor. He's never on his feet. He can't finish. So I think I, I don't think he's good enough for where we want to be and where we want to go to. But I can kind of see him having a place in the squad at the moment for a certain role. But that definitely is not for the striker or the number 9. Definitely not. No way. No chance.
Yeah, that makes more sense. I think it's actually really important to speak to fans about that situation, because sometimes I say things and, obviously a lot of the time I will be wrong. I didn't watch the game of football. I'm breaking down what I can see in front of me. And if he has a really good game off the ball, really statistics don't really show that. Again, you could look at distance covered and things like that, but ultimately you can run around a lot, but are you going to do much, off the ball as well? Things can change and things can look different if you actually watch the game of football. Of course they can.
Yeah.
So again, we spoke about the finishing department there. We spoke about how I think we've got spoken about or we did speak about that back three, and how I think now Ian Evatt is trying to really establish his best back three. Rotation's been happening, but I think we do know his strongest back three now. Has that been because again, the last 2 games against MK Dons and Peterborough, they have all ended in clean sheets for you. Has that been the real positive for you? I look at that now and I go, that does look like a really strong back three, of course, with the wing backs again of Bradley Aloni from Liverpool and Jack Arndale, who joined in the summer as well.
Yeah, I think the injury to Declan John was a bit like a blessing in disguise, because it means that we've had to put in Iredale at left wing back constantly, and I think that has kind of helped in a way of him constantly playing there. He's learnt the role really well, how we want to play. At the back, we've started. I mean, I don't want to put money on it, but we've started to cut out the mistakes. We aren't giving away goals for free anymore, like you say.
Because you spoke about that, didn't you? Sorry to interrupt. You spoke about that last time. You said the biggest downfall has been the individual mistakes.
Yeah, exactly. And since then, touch wood, we seem to have cut them mistakes out. The back five, like you say, has been the same. I think that has helped. In the middle of the park as well, though, George Thomason has been immense the last couple of games. He's really risen up in fans' opinions, because fans were not keen on him. And over the last 3 or 4 games, he's really stepped up. We needed him to really stepped up. It's been a big help.
Yeah, I think I look at that back three now. I think it looks much more established. I think it looks much more, I'll use the word clean. It looks clear as well. It looks like it is a pretty strong, well-balanced, back five with the attacking threat of the wing backs. Also, Jack Arndale being a bit more of a defensive wing back, if you like. And again, that really good back three in terms of central defenders. Looking at the games coming up, of course, Pompey, that would have been a huge game being postponed, of course, for the international call-ups. But Lincoln City, of course, the game after that as well. That's going to be a big home game. Forest Green away, and then, of course, Barnsley at home. These next 3 games are going to be very, very important. The question is going to be on the eyes. It's going to be, I think it's going to be on the minds of all Bolton Wanderers fans. Can we keep the rhythm going? Can we keep the momentum growing? And these next 3 are going to be important in that. Do you agree?
Yeah. I mean, to be honest, October, the entire month of October is massive. I look at all the games, all 6 games. Realistically, we could be coming away with 6 wins out of 6, because I look at the 6 teams there, like you just said, Lincoln, Forest Green, Barnsley, and then after that we've got Accrington, Burton, and Oxford. If we want to be at the top, we need to win them games. Their teams,
you can win all of those games.
Yeah, we should be. So I hope if we play to the best of our ability, we should beat all 6 of them teams, and we should have 24 points, whatever it is. That needs to happen, in my opinion. It really does. Because
that's great. You crack on.
No, that was basically it. Like, we have to win all of October, because if we don't pick up wins against all them teams, I don't see how we're going to beat the top teams.
Yeah, I mean, you've got I don't want to say a nice set of games, because no game's nice, and more than anybody last season, and of course the times you have been in League One, and ask any fan, and I'm sure we'll have a variety of fans watching this right now. No game is an easy set of fixtures. We all know that sides are going to surprise you, and different. I think weeds of problems are gonna come out, during a game of football. But Lincoln at home again. I look at every single one of these games and I go, look, it can go absolutely. It can go wrong. Lincoln City again. They're going to be building some sort of run. They beat who do they beat at the weekend? They beat somebody. They won. Was it Jack Diamond scored was it a hat trick against somebody? I've completely forgotten it. I apologise.
Yeah.
Forest Green away again. That's going to be a difficult place to go. No, they're not having an amazing start to the season, but again, away from home, you don't know what you're going to get. Barnsley again. They're pushing. They're on a good run. They're now pushing to get back into that top 6. Burton, Accrington, and then Oxford. And you don't know what situation we're going to be in by then. So, like you say there, you have got. In your eyes, I think you the best way of describing it, and you got it spot on. They're not easy games. They're not. It's not a nice run, but it's games. If you want to be, going and heading in the direction you want to be, they're the games you have to be winning, and that I think is definitely the point to take away from here.
Yeah, that is definitely the way I think it has to be. I mean, we are quite gifted in some of the months this year because, for example, I know it's an absolute miler, but in April, I mean, I don't think we could have been given a better month.
And that's nearly the running as well. So
exactly. So fixture-wise, I think we've had a really tough start. I mean, in your first 7 games, to play like 4 or 5 of the top 6 in your first 7 games is just ridiculously difficult. So we were never expecting to have full amount of points. Again, I could go back to the way we lost them games, wasn't good enough, but that's for a different story altogether. But I do feel like we have got a lot of luck on our side when it comes to building momentum on the fixtures we've got in certain periods of the season.
I think you will. I think you probably will. I look at that depth is really good as well. Finally, I think what's really important now is moving forward and looking ahead and looking at the games coming up. You can't look and change back on what we've seen. But like you say there, in terms of being a little bit, I mean, it is luck. I'm happy to say that the fixture list is pretty much luck. I know there's a bit of strategy behind it, but generally, again, some teams will have a fortunate run in or a fortunate set of bumps. Of course they will. But to be honest with you, those first 9 games have been difficult. You have had some really, really tough games in there. And to come away 5th in the league, 17 points after 9 games, a win. You have 5 wins. No, God, we've only won 1 game. That'd have been a problem. 5 wins, 2 losses and 2 draws. 3 now wins on the bounce. You probably have to take that, don't you? You probably do have to take that.
I feel like we are starting to come into form. It's just obviously when the season starts, everyone's a bit all over the place. Teams are still trying to work out the best system, which players suit which role the best, all that stuff, blah blah blah. So you are going to get consistencies. It just frustrates me when I see teams like Ipswich and Portsmouth who are basically like unbeaten. I want to be them.
They're having a don't we all? I mean, they're having an absolute storming start, and they're the sides ultimately where you want to be. I want to be catching them, but then it's not, beyond the realms of possibility. On 17 points, they're on 21. It's only a 4-point gap. But again, if they keep, winning games and staying unbeaten, it's going to be challenging. That means you've got to gain that sort of consistency, which, like you say, it will eventually come. Anyway, right, we could go on hours and hours talking about Bolton. They're a very fascinating situation at the moment. Brandon, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you on, mate. Talking about Bolton so far this season for the second time, I do apologise, but I think we've had a really good insight into what we're seeing. Now, 2-3 weeks after we last spoke. Brandon, you're a legend, mate. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you, man. Cheers.
Right, so I'm joined by Jake from the Stacey West, Lincoln City supporter. We spoke about it quickly before I hit record. It's been a good week. It has been a very, very good week. A 2-0 win over Derby County. A thumping, crazy 9-goal thriller against Bristol Rovers. 6-3 to the Imps in that game. I essentially just before we started, it's been a little bit inconsistent. It's a little bit up and down, but you're 8th. So it's a little bit crazy. How do you analyse it so far? Because like I say, it's been a little bit all over the shop, but 14 goals scored, 14 goals conceded. It's fascinating.
Yeah, I think the style of football massively has helped us score a few more goals. Last year, we looked a little bit toothless in attack. Kennedy's brought a pressing game, and you've got wingers like Jordan Garrick and Jack Diamond who can press really strongly, as well as Tom Hopper, who is a really strong pressing forward. To quote Football Manager, really, really up and down start to the season. Like you said, we've had the highs of really high of going to Pompey and really frustrating them. They look really good so far this year, and then you've got the lows of sort of Peterborough and teams like that. To have played only 9 games and only lost 2, that's pretty good. Obviously, like you mentioned, the week we've just had, pretty solid as well. So hopefully we can build on it. I'm not saying we're going to get towards the top end of the table, but certainly looking a bit brighter than what we were sort of maybe 6 months ago under Appleton, because it felt like it was all going a little bit stale.
Yeah, I literally, before you said the word stale, that's exactly how I'd describe it. It felt a little bit same old from an external perspective. And what I mean by that is it looked a little bit like he wasn't getting I don't know, the motivation from maybe himself, the players. You were definitely not the same side you were the year before, of course, when he took you to that playoff final. I look at the side now, it's definitely refreshed, new manager, new set of players in there as well. Jack Diamond, we're going to have to speak about him because he was a diamond against Bristol Rovers. Just looking back, I want to speak about one game, you know exactly what we're on about, Oxford United. Of course, we can't get away from it. I was there. It was a painful Tuesday night. It was cold. I don't know if it was raining, but if it wasn't raining, it felt like it was raining. It was absolutely, from an Oxford perspective, such a frustrating, disappointing night. But for Lincoln, you did exactly what I think a lot of sides maybe don't do, and we certainly didn't do, and that was just made it really tough for the opposition. You made it really difficult for Oxford, and you took your chance. You did what we didn't do and shoot, which is quite a key part of football. You put a ball in the penalty area, again, headed in from Hopper, a really good header. And again, Scully is not there anymore, is he? Is it Wigan he's moved to? Again, he had a really good game as well. It was a brilliant goal from him. But ultimately, that game was so frustrating. And like I say, not enough sides, I think, do it. Oxford certainly aren't doing it this season. That's been our downfall. How did you break down and look at that game? Because it was frustrating from our perspective. I imagine you're fairly happy with it, or were fairly happy with it.
Yeah, well, I can confirm it was raining because we walked back to that car park and I was absolutely drenched on the way back. No, it was a really good game, I thought. I thought it sort of showed our defensive capabilities stronger than any game has so far this year. Obviously, we went into the game, you guys had finished above us in the league pretty much. Almost every year we've been down in League One, bar the playoff season rather. So it was a tough game to go into, and Oxford are always pretty strong at home. We've never really got a result at the Kassam either, which made it a little bit sweeter. But I agree with you. I think for all the nice football that Oxford played, I like the lad in midfield, McGuane. I thought he passed the ball around really well. Lewis Bate.
He's been our best player so far this season. He's been a shining light in a bad side.
Yeah, I thought he was really strong, and I thought you guys. It looked like you were going to score. But I think we sort of did the sucker punch, and we had two real opportunities in the game, like you say, the ball into Hops, who headed the ball away really nicely. And if you let Anthony Scully cut in on his right foot in League One, then I think you're going to sort of have to pay the price, because that right foot curling into the corner is fantastic, which is why he's sealed and moved up to the Championship. And then what we did was defend like absolute warriors. I think it was epitomised when the final whistle went, or it was close to the final whistle. Regan Poole and Pordy O'Connor, both on the floor, desperate to block the ball, got up and did a massive chest bump, and I think it was a real positive so far of our season. It's weird that saying, considering there's no real rivalry between the two teams, but it was such a good night, and I thought it showed how different we can be under Mark Kennedy to Michael Appleton. Because under Michael Appleton, I think once we concede the penalty, I think we go and concede 2 or 3. Under Kennedy's installed this real physicality, and that's why Pordy O'Connor's in there to, give Matty Taylor a difficult game, and ultimately walking away with the 3 points was very satisfying, given how pathetic we'd been at the Kassam sort of in the years previous.
Yeah, I think you're spot on with all those points. The only frustrating thing I think you'll find is the result after that was not the one you wanted. And I think building off of that win against Oxford was going to be really important. And unfortunately, you weren't able to do it, losing quite heavily to Peterborough. But since then, it has been good. I mean, it's been you lost to Lincoln, lost to Cambridge United, 2-0, 2-2 against Fleetwood. A really good win against Barnsley in the Football League Trophy, and then, like I say, these 2 games we've just spoken about in the last week against Derby and Bristol Rovers. I mean, like I say, now it has been up and down. It has been a real rollercoaster of emotions to be a football fan. It's fair to say. Yeah. One thing I would say, and speaking about maybe the goals scored and goals against, because I'm looking at the league table straight away. I don't watch every single game in League One. I definitely haven't. It's the only game I've watched of Lincoln, and that was against Oxford. Yeah. But 14 goals conceded and scored. 14 against. That seems to be the bit of the standout. I mean, Cambridge United, who are actually above you, just below you, on 15. But again, you're on 14. You've conceded quite a few. You've shipped quite a few. But again, you've scored 14, which actually puts you fairly high up on the goal score table. I can see straight away. You mentioned it right at the start. The different, I think, the brand of football has been absolutely revolutionised. Is that definitely the massive positive of this season?
Yeah, I think so. There was a real, like we said earlier, that it was stale between the Lincoln City supporters and Appleton. The fact he hadn't managed to get us promoted with such a really good squad, and the circumstances in that playoff year all sort of really went for us with the wage cap, etc. He wasn't able to follow up on that, so the club needed a refresh, and there was no real connection between the supporters and Michael Appleton. There were some. I was a massive Appleton fan. I can imagine.
I liked Appleton. I liked Appleton.
Appleton's really popular down your neck of the woods. But there was just this change that was needed, and Kennedy knew as soon as he came in the first interview, said, "I need to get the fans on board. I need to get everyone singing from the same hymn sheet," which is something similar to what Danny Cowley said when he first came to the football club back in 2016. So, and there's this connection between Mark Kennedy and the supporters. You can tell that the players epitomise the city, and I think it's. They're running really hard. I think the game against Derby, both of our centre midfielders ran between 11 and 12k, which for professional football is pretty decent. As we didn't have the ball, so yeah, the style of play were a bit more direct, as you would have seen. We're not trying to walk the ball into the net like we did under Appleton. We are happy to play the ball long at times. I mean, I definitely noticed in that Oxford game, especially against Bristol Rovers and Derby as well, the long diag. So Carl Rushworth rolls it out to Pordy O'Connor, long switch wide out to Garrick or Diamond, and massively a lot of success has come through those wide balls. And luckily, we've got enough end quality in the final third at the moment to stick the chances away, like you saw on Saturday.
Yeah. And finally, talk about taking those chances. Jack Diamond, I mean, he certainly took his chance against Bristol Rovers. I mean, it was a crazy game of football. It was an absolutely crazy game of football. I'm sure it was even more crazy watching it. Jack Diamond of course, scoring 3 goals, a hat trick in the game. It's just quite sublime, and that game itself was quite sublime as well. Jack Diamond signed in the summer from Sunderland. Is that right? Was it Sunderland before?
That's right.
He was, I presume, the replacement of Scully.
Yes, yeah, I think so. Obviously, a lot of supporters, when they lose a player, they go, right, who's the replacement? But I think the club were very wise to get the replacement in before. They knew the Scully news was coming. They knew as the window drew on, it was going to be harder to keep him. I know we had turned down really big bids for him before the Wigan one was accepted, but it was an opportunity that he wanted to explore, and I don't think you could blame him given his goal contributions over the last 2.5 years at Lincoln. So but if Sunderland are loaning out a player like Jack Diamond, then they must have a really stacked squad. He's unbelievable. I think you'll see in the reverse game, if you manage to come down to the bank, the ball's glued to his foot. He played really well against Derby, made a really big impact, and then obviously an even bigger impact against Bristol Rovers. Every time he went forward with the ball, Bristol Rovers panicked, and it helped that they had like Glenn Whelan playing at centre back instead of Alfie Kilgore. Not going to lie, but Jack Diamond running with the ball. He's very clinical at the moment, so we're happy to have him. Hopefully, he doesn't get recorded in January. We're hoping for another. I remember Tyler Walker when he scored 20 goals before Christmas for us. He went back to Forest and didn't do much afterwards. So hopefully we can have Jack for the season. Goes back to Sunderland, or we stamp the money up for him. But a really talented footballer, works hard off the ball, really good with the ball, selfish. He's just got that streak about him that's selfish as well. So yeah, I can't speak highly enough about Jack Diamond. I really think he should be given a fair crack in the Sunderland team, but ultimately that's a decision of Tony Mowbray and not mine. And
of course, I think you'll definitely take that decision in the short term. I think you're enjoying Jack Diamond. I think he's doing a really, really good job. Of course, the game on Saturday was postponed against MK Dons, the home fixture. But then again, it's not going to be an easy game after that. You've got Bolton away from home, so maybe that postponed game could be a little bit more challenging. And then, I mean, it doesn't get much easier, does it? It doesn't get much easier. Charlton at home and then Ipswich away. These next 3 games are very, very difficult. And again, I mean, I'm not saying MK Dons weren't difficult. If you had to play that game as well, it would have been, even more challenging. How do you take on these next 3 games? Because again, on face value, it looks really challenging, and I'm sure it will be. But you've got to build on those 2 results against Derby County and Lincoln City. And Bristol Rovers. I keep saying Lincoln City. You are Lincoln City. Bristol Rovers, and technically Barnsley, if you're taking the Football League Trophy into consideration.
Yeah,
Most importantly, that 6-3 win. If you take that run into these next 3 games, you're going to be in a very, very shiny place. But it's not going to be easy, is it?
No, but I think the one thing that we have on side really is the fact that Mark gets an extra 10 days, an extra week on the training ground with the players. And, you know, the Derby game came following that. Sorry, I beg your pardon. The Derby game came following the postponement, obviously, of the death after the Queen, and that gave Mark a bit more time on the training ground. And you look at what that difference has made to the squad, given the last 2 results. So hopefully it sort of gives players a bit more time to come back fit. Hopefully the likes of Danny Mandrew might get fit. Jordan Garrick will hopefully get fit and firing. We've got Max Sanders to come back into the team, Joe Walsh, etc., Lewis Monsma. So we've got a lot of lads, hopefully, that these injuries can come back and hopefully affect these games. But, you know, Bolton, Charlton, Ipswich, yeah, I think Bolton and Ipswich probably a bit more difficult than Charlton, given how sort of inconsistent Charlton are as well. Bolton really strong at home. I remember going there last year and they beat us 3-1, really turned us over quite easily. Really good side. Obviously, they've been together a while, that group with Ian Evatt. They recruited heavily in January. So that will be a very tough test. But I think while you're off the back of the results like we are, beating Derby and then going to Bristol Rovers and scoring 6, I don't think there's a better time to play the top teams because you're full of confidence. You're not particularly scared going into the games. You're thinking, well, we're on as good a form as them. So, yeah, I mean, whilst we're probably not expected to get many points, I think that's probably where we're going to thrive. We'll be able to play on the counter a little bit more, let them have the ball and then hit them on the break, really. You've got Garrick, like I say, is pretty quick. You've got Jack Diamond is pretty quick. Teddy Bishop, if he can get himself fit, is pretty quick as well. So we've definitely a tough run of games, like you say, but given the last week, 10 days, I'm pretty sure anything can happen. And if we were to pick up, say, maybe 5 points from those 3 games, I think that would be a really, really good return.
No, I think you're right. I think it definitely would be, and who knows where that would put you in the league table as well, because 8th at the moment, it's very tight. A lot of sides, winning games of football, and then when sides drop points, you're pretty sure other sides will be dropping points as well. That's how tight it is. So yeah, it has been an up and down campaign so far. Only 9 games in, but generally a lot of positives. Quite a few negatives, you probably say, and that probably is fair. But generally, you're in a fairly good position, and 2 wins off the back to back in League One. And again, that has to be taken as a massive positive. So, Jake, it's been an absolute pleasure to speak to you, mate. And definitely go and check out the Stacey West podcast and the Stacey West channel. Also, as well, of course, a regular member on the is Ben. Ben does his roundups as well. He's always doing, of course, the Fleetwood Town fan. We know Ben very well in this world. Doing amazingly well, and he's also, of course, on the roundups as well. And Jake's a regular member on there, so definitely go and check him out on that. So, anyway, Jake, absolute pleasure, mate. Thank you so much for coming on, and we'll definitely speak soon, mate.
Yes, much appreciated. Thank you very much.
Right, so I'm joined by Luca for the second time to talk about Ipswich. We spoke really, really quickly off camera before we started recording. I said it has just got better since we last spoke, and if there's any positive about, I think, speaking maybe 2 weeks after we have done, we have seen more of Ipswich. We've seen more of a side of the Kieran McKenna that I believe is getting stronger and stronger from, again, face value and from an external perspective. But you said it is, but it isn't. Luca, can you kick off straight away and explain that? Because that baffles me. You're top of the league, you're unbeaten, you're scoring goals, keeping clean sheets. What do you mean?
The main thing, to be honest, when I said that was about Sheffield Wednesday, to be honest, because the fact that we conceded so late on to get an equaliser is reminiscent of last season, honestly. Now, I am very happy with how we're playing. I think it's just that one game that's put a little bit of a sour thing in my mouth, because going into that game, I've been happy with the point, to be honest. But now it just feels a bit like we were robbed a little bit, and we need to be able to see out games against bigger teams like that. And I'm worried about how we're going to perform against the bigger teams, because all the bigger teams we've played against, we haven't had results against.
It's an interesting point. Barnsley 2-2, Sheffield Wednesday 2-2. We scroll back here, a draw against Bolton 1-1 as well. You do make a good point. You're beating Quarter Forest Green, MK Dons. Again, that isn't easy, but we don't know MK Dons. At that situation, it wasn't quite the MK Dons of the previous year. Burton, of course, you beat them 1-0, but it was a professional performance, but they're struggling. Shrewsbury 3-0. That looked really impressive. Shrewsbury have got better, so I would slightly disagree a little bit when I look at that. Accrington 2-0 comfortable. Bristol Rovers 2-0. Of course, they were down to 9 men at that point in that game. So you do make a really good point, and I'm going to be completely honest with you. This is where it's going to get very, very challenging. That's why we do these fan call-ins. Every fan's going to have their opinion. There'll be some Ipswich fans that feel as though they're going to storm through these next 2 games and hopefully beyond that. But these two are going to be very, very interesting. And these next 2 games are going to be pivotal, I think, because you spoke about right at the start, again, your record against maybe the sides that are going to be competing with you at the top end of the table. They're going to be... That's going to be completely up, up in a test now, isn't it? Because these next 2 are certainly there,
aren't they? Yeah.
You got Pompey a second, Plymouth who are third. Again, Pompey are unbeaten, Plymouth again are unbeaten and on a winning run, without conceding a goal at home as well. It's going to be really, really challenging. Looking at the sort of Ipswich of this season, looking at maybe the more positive, because it has been very positive.
Yes, it has.
They've been very, very professional performances. That's how I look at it. A 2-0 against Accrington Stanley, clean sheet, get the job done, let's get out of here. Ipswich at home to Bristol Rovers, let's get the job done, keep a clean sheet, 2-0, let's go. Shrewsbury, 3-0, I could go on. A few, of course, like you said, the draws against the Sheffield Wednesdays, the Barnsleys, the Boltons. However, the games in which you should be winning, and there'll be some arguments to say you should be winning the other games as well, but definitely the should-be's, you're winning them comfortably, you're getting the job done, and you're just heading off home.
Yeah, we are. Which is, at the end of the day, what it's all about. Because I've been told this by many people, because I'm naturally a pessimist when it comes to Ipswich. But if we don't end up getting a result against the big teams, if we beat all the little teams, then we'll still probably be in the running. So it is what it is.
Yeah, and I think at this point in the season, it's really important just to get through these games, and these next 2 are going to be very, very, very pivotal. And like you say earlier, they're going to be almost season deciders. Not that if you lose both of them, your title race or promotion race is over, but they're certainly going to help you if you do win the game. And if you win both of those, you're going to be in a much better position, and you're going to be taking points off the sides who are currently second and third, which is exactly what we want to try and do. So
exactly, yes. Yeah.
That for me is the biggie. It's been an absolute pleasure to speak to you. Really, really quickly before we go, I want to speak to you about your player of the season so far. I know it's early days, only 9 games, but so far, putting your spot a little bit, who do you go for? I'll put a few names forward. I'd probably go with either Lee Evans. I think he's had a really good start to the season in midfield. Connor Chaplin's been very influential. So Sam Morsey and that partnership between Lee Evans and Sam Morsey has been very, very good. I think that's been a partnership that's actually got better and better under Kieran McKenna. There's some questions over Lee Evans maybe under previous managers, but I think Kieran McKenna is getting the best out of that midfielder. That'd be mine. Who would you go for?
I can tell you my favourite player is Marcus Harness at the minute. Our best player, yeah. I'd probably go with Connor Chaplin at the minute. He's turned up pretty much every game, to be honest.
He's doing well, isn't he?
Yeah, he is. I mean, he was doing well this time last season as well. I think he's just an all-round solid, good player.
7 goal contributions in 7 starts.
Yeah, and well, you've just said it there. I had no idea that was the stat, but he's definitely been doing bloody good, hasn't he?
Yeah, 6 goals, 1 assist, 7 starts, 9 games totally played. But yeah, we look at those starts. There's been 7 of them, 6 goals, 1 assist. He has been absolutely magnificent, playing as that sort of almost that second attacking midfielder, if you like, in the system. Also can play a little bit higher up. He can drift wide, sort of been drifting more to the right actually in the heat map in front of me. So yeah, been really impressed with him. Been very impressed with Ipswich Town. Of course, still unbeaten. You were unbeaten when we last spoke. You're unbeaten still now after 9 games, but some really, really big games coming up, and they're going to put your thing to the test about beating sides that maybe again are going to be up there come the end of the season, or should be up there come the end of the season. Absolute pleasure to speak to you, mate. Sorry, Luca, that we have to speak about this again because again, bit of a technical difficulty, but we're back, and things have got better, and you're still unbeaten.
That is right, and I mean, I'm not bothered about speaking again. I like talking about football, so
yeah.
So
well, that's exactly what we're all here to do. Is exactly what we're here to
do. In a few weeks after we've hopefully beaten Plymouth and Pompey, then we can have another chat, maybe.
Yeah, and again, if you're still unbeaten by then I mean, you're going to be even happier. So
plain sailing.
Yeah,
if that happens.
Luca, it's been an absolute pleasure, mate. Take care, and we'll definitely speak soon. Yeah. Good luck with the next 2 games. They're going to be tough.
Thanks.
Right, so I'm joined by Cambridge United fan. It's Joey. That's the Discord name. And Cambridge United, it's been a little bit all over the shop, hasn't it, really? 4 wins, 4 losses, a draw in there as well, a little bit inconsistent, a little bit up and down, 2 now defeats back to back is a little bit frustrating. I've just released an episode on the channel speaking about Cambridge United. Has been who actually been my most I think surprise package of someone that's really have gone from strength to strength. You were currently 5th when I recorded that. I said you might even sneak in that, top 8 maybe. Now, I'm going to be honest, I know it's not your fault, but it hasn't gone amazingly well since I put that out, or really since I recorded it. So I'm going to make myself look a little bit stupid when people start finding that out, which won't be too long. But all jokes aside, last 2 games haven't been ideal. But really, I look before that there have been some really good results. Joey, you know about the football club much more than I do. How do you break it down?
Yeah, I'd say we started the season really well, on the back mainly of home form, I guess, because a lot of teams who've come to us will know we have like a very narrow pitch, so a lot of people contribute that to part of the reason we're good at home is like teams like MK Dons who played in the first game who want to spread it wide a lot and get the ball out wide. They sort of seem to struggle, and I'd say I thought they did struggle that first game. I know it was first game of the season, but yeah, they seem to struggle playing us at home for reasons like that, and we're just better at home in general. Although we did lose 3-0 to Barnsley the other week, so that wasn't the best home result, so maybe it's taking a turn. But yeah, we just really seemed off the boil the last week. I don't really know. It's just like the players who were really playing well the previous weeks just seem to almost not turn up this week. So I'm going to put it down to just a bad week. But I mean, I think the Morecambe game on Saturday will sort of be the tell whether it was actually just a bad week or not.
Yeah, I mean, if it is a bad week, you'll find out against Morecambe, like you say there, because again, you're playing on Saturday, one of not many games going ahead, of course, the international call-ups, but it's a good opportunity for you because you can win that game and you're looking in a really good position. I mean, some will say it's not fully the entire picture because some games, of course, wouldn't have gone ahead and you'd be ahead in terms of games played compared to other sides, but it is a good opportunity. And, is it Sir Alex Ferguson used to say, I think it's most important, just to play those games in hand and get your points on the board. So it's going to be interesting. Morecambe, like you say there, deep diving a little bit into that game, putting things right, I think is going to be the message from Mark Bonner, I imagine, because that Cheltenham result wasn't great. That Barnsley home defeat wasn't good either. You did beat Northampton in the Football League Trophy 2 days ago, but it's all about the league. It's exactly what matters. How do you think is the best way of approaching this game? Because again, confidence probably won't be at its highest, and if it is a bad week, it's the most important thing to do is get out of that rut, get out of that bad week mentality. And how do you do that against Morecambe? Because Morecambe, they're not going to be a breeze. They're not having an amazing start to the season. They have now won their first game, and they'll come into this game with their first win of the season. But how do you sort of again approach that type of game? I know you're not the manager, but as a fan, how do you think you'll approach it?
Well, how I would approach it is a lot more aggressive, I guess, than how I actually know we will. Like, when we play these teams, and it was kind of the problem against Cheltenham, is we sort of play the same style no matter what team we play. So it's like, it's a lot more suited to playing the better teams. We always play 4-2-3-1 with 2 more holdings. I guess Adame's a little bit more expensive than Paul Digby, but it's like, in the Cheltenham game, and I say that this would be a very similar game to the Morecambe game, it's like we get a goal ahead and we almost just want to play on the counter after that, especially away from home we play like this. And I think there's a lot of fans, including myself, who would like us this season especially, because we feel like we're a little bit stronger this season, especially in depth, to sort of play more aggressive and go for the second a bit more and go for it against these teams. Because to be honest, I think although a lot of fans may have had us nearish the bottom, I think most Cambridge United fans would say they expect, even away, Morecambe to be a very winnable game. So, yeah, I personally would like to see us go for it a lot and even maybe play 2 up front, which I know we're not used to doing. We have done in the past. In the season we went up, we played 2 up front. But how we're going to set up, we're going to play 4-2-3-1.
Yeah.
Might drop Ironside and play Smith in a game like this, but that's about it.
I think it probably will be the Mark Bonner special with the 4-2-3-1. It's what he definitely feels most comfortable with. It's something that he has done now for the last 2 years. Like you say, League One last year, a very successful campaign back in the division. And again, the start of the season for you was good. It has dropped off a little bit recently, but it has been successful, the 4-2-3-1. But maybe you do need a little bit more of an attacking outlet, and let's wait and see. I know we shouldn't look too far, but the game after that's at home to Derby County. That's going to be a challenge. You then got Bristol Rovers away from home and Sheffield Wednesday at home. These next few games, next 4 games, a block of 4, are going to be very, very challenging. I imagine you feel the same, and I think it's going to be really important that I think you do put. And I think that Morecambe game's pivotal. I think it's really important that Morecambe, you do win that game, because the games after that, they're going to be a real test and really decide exactly where you are ultimately.
Yeah, I think this month's only been made harder by the fact the Ipswich game got rearranged because of the Queen's funeral and everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think Derby at home will be a bit weird. I don't really know what to expect from them. They've had a bit of an up and down.
They've got rid of the manager as well, of course, or their interim manager. Brought in Paul Warne, looks to be that Rotherham United gaffer for a long time.
Yeah, and I already did quite rate him at Rotherham, so
I did as well.
It'll be interesting to see. But I mean, they're going to be a strong team no matter what, and it's going to be a big game. I think they've already sold out the away end for that game. So, and I mean, it's a new club for us, so the home end will probably pretty much sell out as well. So the problem is we've always struggled, and it was the main concern this season coming into the season is why Mark Bonner made a big comment this season about how the main focus on recruitment was to add depth, because we struggled last season playing a big game Saturday and then a big game Tuesday because we'd have to rotate the squad. And the bench players who would come in were nowhere near as good as the players who started. And I'd say we have added a bit of depth this season, so we might do better than we would have done last season in a situation like Saturday, Tuesday against Derby, Ipswich, but I'm not fully convinced personally by some of the bench players yet, so we'll see.
Interesting. No, I think that is fair. But generally, how do you, if you could score it, it's going to be a really sort of basic answer, not very analytical, not very, not the best question, but I think it's going to be an interesting indication to sort of see after sort of 9 games where you stand. If you could rate the first 9 games from a scale of 1 to 10 in terms of what you've seen in terms of performance, in terms of results, in terms of maybe expectation management from where you sort of felt you would be when we did this, or when we spoke, or when you felt at the start of the season, where would you go? Because I probably would give it a good 7.
Yeah, I'd say like between 7 and 8, so 7.5 if I'm being picky. But yeah, I mean, you can't complain. I mean, if someone had said 9th after what, like 9-10 games, whatever it is now, I would be pretty happy. And the teams we've lost to aren't the worst ones, other than maybe Cheltenham. We haven't played any of the. I know it's hard to know who is going to be the top teams, but the teams maybe you'd expect to be the top teams. We've only really played Portsmouth, and we got thrashed on paper, but we were good for 60 minutes in that game. So, yeah, I wouldn't complain. And I mean, we're 1 place ahead of Peterborough, and that's what a lot of fans care about. So, yeah.
Yeah, no, you are. And again, ultimately, that's what the league table is all about, isn't it? Just beating Peterborough. So, you should be all right. Look, it's been an absolute pleasure to speak to you, mate. Speaking about Cambridge United, we weren't able to the first time around. So, yeah, let's see what happens with Cambridge United. I think if again, they're going to be challenging games, but Morecambe's going to be a big one. If you can win that game, look where it's going to be. So, yeah. Anyway, thank you so much for coming on, mate. Absolute pleasure, and we'll definitely speak soon, mate.
Yep, thank you.
Right, welcome back to the call-in for Bolton Wanderers once again. We've got a few Bolton Wanderers fans coming on for these call-ins, which is always very, very good. And we're joined by Dane, Bolton Wanderers fan. Dane, for the second time in about a week, because Jack lost the footage. How you doing, mate? You okay?
I'm good, mate. How are you?
Not bad at all. We're back to talk about Bolton. And to be honest with you, although, like I keep saying with all of these call-ins, although we are having to record this again, and I'm not trying to make what I did acceptable, because it's not. I lost the footage. However, it does mean we're now looking further forward, and of course we've seen Bolton play more games of football. You're 5th in the league, and actually since we last spoke, things have got better. I think we spoke after the win against Charlton Athletic, and we were a little bit dubious how things were going to go against MK Dons and Peterborough. I mean, you got 6 points from both of those games. You lost against Tranmere in the Football League Trophy, but I don't see that as a problem at all. Again, that game on Saturday being postponed, or tomorrow it would have been against Pompey, would have been a big one. Of course, for international call-ups, it's not going ahead. So Lincoln City will be the one after that. But let's not go too far ahead. Let's focus on what we've just seen, because we spoke about Charlton in that game where I think we all could agree Bolton were the much better side and Charlton didn't really turn up. And it was actually important you got that win, because you lost to Plymouth and you get a few results before that. They're a little bit questionable. questionable. Sheffield Wednesday at home was not a good result. But those last two performances, Dane, and those last two results, you must be fairly pleased, no?
Oh yeah, because it's like you were saying. We spoke just after the Charlton game, and I said I wasn't as confident as most Bolton fans for MK Dons because they seem to be like our said bogey team, especially at their ground.
Yeah, you did say that. You did say that.
So obviously it was nice to watch us beat them. And I wasn't at the Peterborough game, but from what I've seen, it was it could have been like a cricket score at one point. People were saying like we just had chances galore, and we just weren't taking them.
Yeah, I've got the Bolton Peterborough sort of momentum graph that I use when I do the roundups in front of me here. I mean, you absolutely wiped the floor of Peterborough in terms of the attacking momentum across the game. The second half, Peterborough hardly had a kick. I think Bolton were the much better side across the 90. But in that second half in particular, that second 45, you were the definite... the storming success of Bolton in that game. I look at that starting a lineup in there as well. We did speak and we touched on different positions, and we spoke about it with Brandon, the other Bolton Wanderers fans who's been doing the call-ins as well with me. And he mentioned something about the striker. He mentioned something about the lack of a number 9 or a lack of another number 9 alongside Dion Charles. We know Kunchungu can do that role, and maybe his off-the-ball stuff is getting maybe not as much recognition as it should do. Do you share that opinion? Do you feel as though that number 9 is still a little bit of the missing piece in the puzzle? Or do you think Dion Charles, Kunchunga, of course you've got other options as well, Bakayoko can play there, but Varson's not a bad number 9, of course Dapo can play as at centre forward. You have got different options, but you feel as though maybe another number 9 could be wouldn't go amiss essentially?
Yeah, definitely. I think we need that out and out. Don't get me wrong, Charles is an out and out striker, but in terms of like coverage of the field, he's all over the field, not in a bad way. Like he gets a lot of ground covered, whereas the number 9 we could do with someone who's up constantly attacking. Like obviously when Bodvarson's fit, I reckon he'll be the perfect player for us at the moment. But I do think if I was to have added any position other than what we signed in the summer, it would have been a number 9.
Because Bodvarsson, of course, was on the bench of the Peterborough United game. He came on in the 70th minute. So, of course, I presume, like you said there, that is an injury thing, and he is still now trying to get fit. And maybe him and Dion Charles could form a partnership. But, both of those players have injuries since the start of the season. Dion Charles only just started coming back and starting games of football. Of course, like I said as well, Bodvarsson is slowly building up that fitness. Looking forward to the next couple of games and the next block of games. There are some very tough ones. I don't think any game in League One isn't going to be tough. They're all going to pose a different type of threat. Of course, Pompey's game didn't go ahead. But Lincoln City, that's going to be a difficult game at home. Cheltenham away. And then, of course, you've got Forest Green away and then Forest Green away and then Barnsley at home. I look at this next sort of block of 4, if you like. How many points do you feel I don't want to say how many points do you think you will pick up, because no one's going to know, and it's not a very good analytical question. But I look at those fixtures there. If you are looking to gain some sort of consistency, you are going to have to pick up some points in those games. And I do feel the squad that Bolton have got and the rhythm that Ian Everett's trying to gain, there is some winnable games in there.
Oh yeah, definitely. And it's like obviously we've got 2 teams near the bottom end of the table, and then we've got 2 teams that should potentially be fighting for playoffs, if not Barnsley automatics. A lot of people backed, so I'd happily take 10 points from the 4, but obviously I don't think it'll be as easy as we're expecting. And then obviously we've still got to play Burton and Oxford as well coming up as well. So we've got, in terms of fixture wise, we're in a good position. Like if you look at our next, if we were to look at the next 6 or 7, we've got to play pretty much all the bottom like 6 the relegation sides, and then obviously Lincoln and Barnsley in amongst that.
Yeah, and there are some challenging ones in there. And like I said right before I asked that question, no game in this division is going to be easy. And I think what we can also take away from it is consistency is going to be really important. And you are at the moment gaining that type of consistency. A win against Charlton, a win against MK Dons. Also, it's important to say as well, in those last 2 games against MK Dons and Peterborough, you've kept clean sheets as well. Yeah. I think that is also important, because I remember you saying, it is important that we need the same sort of consistency, and we do need to gain that type of run, because sides are going to be, again, above us and even below us, going to be pushing to try and take that spot. And we see how competitive this division is. Keeping clean sheets, I think, is important. And I think we also spoke about how that back 3 was sort of trying to exactly be, not figured out, but I think Ian Everett was exactly trying to find the back 3 that works best for him. Do you feel as though he has found that now? Do you feel as though that back 3 of, the one that started against Peterborough United, Johnston, Santos and Jones, do you feel like that is the back 3 that he's going to go for in the long run?
Potentially, yeah. I feel like Gethin Jones is very hit and miss. Obviously, he's a known right back, but obviously he's been playing as the centre back due to obviously like injuries and just overall fitness and the fact that we have been struggling at times. But then again, he steps up and he's proving that he can actually do it on the day, which is big for us because it allows Bradley to push on forward like he has been doing, and it's showing how good of a player again he is.
Yeah, I want to touch on Conor Bradley really briefly because I know we mentioned it when the first time we recorded this, and you were singing the praises of Conor Bradley, and so you should, because I think he's shown what a type of player that he is on loan from Liverpool, of course. I mean, he's just come into this side, and of course the loss of Marlon Fossey, him going back to Fulham, I believe, you had him on loan last season from January. I think we all saw the quality that he had and the way that he was so influential in an Ian Evatt system. Conor Bradley, he comes into this back five or the back three, whatever you want to call it, in that right wing back spot, and he looks already at absolute home. And the goal contributions of Conor Bradley are absolutely exceptional as well. In fact, I've got them in front of us here. Currently, Conor Bradley is on 2 assists, and in terms of his goals, he's actually got 2 as well. So he's got four goal contributions in the games that he's played. He's been so influential.
Yeah, he's been a breath of fresh air, and like you said, losing a player like Fossey was big for us. But obviously, with how well he played in such a little amount of time, it was obvious that he was going to be picked up well, as it looked like a championship team. But bless him, he's gone to, I think it's Belgium he's gone to now, Standard Liège. So that's a huge signing for someone of his age.
That's interesting. I didn't know he because he was linked with a few championship clubs, wasn't he? He was linked with a few, and to go to, I mean, let's not disrespect the Belgium league, but it's interesting that he has gone there, because I know there's a lot of, I mean, you were definitely interested in him, and as soon as there wasn't really that reciprocated interest, it looked as though that your eyes sort of moved elsewhere. And Bradley was the man. I think, to be honest with you, the fullbacks of Jack Irondale and Conor Bradley, those 2 recruited players playing at the moment in those wide sort of wing back or right midfield area, I think they are working really well and they fit the system perfectly.
Yeah, they've both like come into a very big role that they've had to pick up, and you can't fault either of them. So far, it has been perfect, and I'm intrigued to see if obviously any of our players play tomorrow, because we've got obviously Northern Ireland playing tomorrow, so we could have Dion Charles and not Bodvarton, what am I on about? Conor Bradley. But obviously we've got other players, other internationals as well. So it'll be interesting to get involved.
I think in terms of, all focus then will be on that Lincoln City game at 3:00 next Saturday, and that's going to be a really interesting match as well. Really briefly, and finally, I'd say I want to sort of just quickly touch on the player that you've been most impressed by so far this season. I've got an inkling I know who it's going to be. I feel it could be the Liverpool loanee we've just spent a little bit of time speaking about. I think he has been exceptional. I think we can all completely understand it if you went for him. But, am I right? Or are there other, there could be quite a few players. I imagine there will be. But is Conor Bradley certainly up there for your player of the season so far?
If I was to, obviously it is Conor Bradley, but if I was to look past Conor Bradley, because I think everyone's player will be him, I have to say Kieran Lee, because it's I think I touched on him before, or it was during just after the Charlton call. Obviously we signed him in League Two, and a player of his calibre shouldn't have signed for a League Two team. But despite his age, you wouldn't think it. He's bossing the midfield. It's we saw him against the Villa game. He put Callum Chambers on his backside. He was just bossing a Premier League team, and he's a very, very solid midfielder who's playing week in, week out for us, which is exactly what we needed in that sort of role, because he's very good defensively and going forward as well. He's proven time and time again that he's got the capabilities to push forward when needed.
He's started 5 games this season, and he's 34. So,
yeah.
He's doing solid. Well.
Yeah, and when he does play, you can tell he's playing. He's not a player who's just there. He makes himself known on the pitch.
Yeah, goal against Charlton. He's got an assist in the Aston Villa game as well. He got 2 assists against Salford City in the EFL Cup, and some, generally really good surface score ratings across the games that he's played. A little bit under the radar as well. It's interesting because not many people, I don't think, would probably highlight Kieran Lee, and I think that is exactly what we do the call-ins, because you get fans of these football clubs and watch these sides and watch these players week in, week out, highlighting these players that maybe we don't see. You look at the actual statistics: 5 games played, 5 total starts, only 1 goal. And I don't think he's actually registered as assist this season either, which is interesting. But I think what you're saying there is maybe in terms of his goal output isn't the outstanding thing. I think it is more about what he does and how he actually maybe influences the team in other ways. I think Kieran Lee is a really good example of that. Really quickly, before I keep saying finally, but it's really fascinating. Finally, how do you feel now going into? Let's look forward actually even further, which is dangerous, but I'm going to do it because I'm feeling quite rogue this morning. It's actually the afternoon now. It's got to 1. God, the day's flying by. Do you feel as though you're ready feel like you're in a good position squad wise to sort of get to January? Do you feel like the squad is looking okay, other than maybe that number 9?
Yeah, other than the number 9, it's like we've got a lot of players coming back from injury. So we've got this obviously Owen Toll, the Irish centre back. Obviously, we've got Josh Sheehan and Lloyd Isgrove, players who were bossing the team before long-term injuries last season and the COVID season. So it's obviously massive for them to come back, but it just leaves Everett with a big decision of, does he stick with, obviously you don't change your winning team. That seems to be like the key. But when we've got this many good players for a team like Bolton, it's good to be singing my praises about them as of late, because obviously we've not had the best run of form over the past few years.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think that squad is looking really good, and I think actually the depth of that squad, you didn't do amazingly. You didn't do well. You did. I think you did very well, but you didn't do a huge amount of business in the summer. But I think a lot of the business was done in the January window prior to it. And I think the players you did bring in the summer were clever, intelligent, and made sense to fit the squad. So I do think you're in a good position. Anyway, it's been an absolute pleasure to speak to you, Dane, this morning. I think, although we're having to speak nearly every week now because I keep messing up on Discord, we are getting somewhere. I think Bolton Wanderers fans also feel as though they're getting somewhere as well. So absolute pleasure to speak to you, mate, and 100% we'll be doing it again.
Sweet, take care.
Take care, mate. Thank you. So I'm joined by Matt, Cheltenham Town fan, Matt MS on YouTube. So definitely go and check him out. Amazing Cheltenham Town content. We're here to talk about Cheltenham and the season so far. Currently, let's have a look at the league table here. If we scroll down, is it going to let me scroll down? Yes, it will. Amazing stuff. Currently just outside the relegation zone, 20th in the league, a loss in their last game. A little bit inconsistent. Look at that form. I mean, 2 wins, 2 draws and 5 losses, 12 goals conceded, 8 goals scored. I mean, the goals conceded and scored aren't outrageous, if I'm being completely honest. But Matt, you know the football club better than I ever will. I'm looking at that, I'm going, I mean, it's not a brilliant start to the season, 5 defeats and just outside that bottom 4, but it could be worse. Take it away. How are you feeling?
Yeah, it's been a weird start to the season. Obviously, we've had a lot of change to the club over the summer. Obviously, we lost Michael Duff. Wade Elliott's come in. He's got a big task. Of course, this is his first proper managerial experience, really. Of course, we lost Will Boyle over the summer to Huddersfield. Obviously, we had key loanees such as Callum Wright, obviously going back to their parent clubs. So there's been a lot of change going on, a lot of new players coming in. The way we've started the season, to be quite honest, the football we've played is more of a concern than the form, I think. Obviously, we didn't expect a perfect start. We have played some very, very good sides in our opening few games as well, so that has to be taken account of. But certain performances up until this point, the loss against Accrington last Saturday, and other performances in our losses have been a bit concerning, and I think that's the main thing. But form-wise, to be honest, I think to have picked up 2 wins at this stage, a couple of draws, and some of the performances have been okay. Obviously, it's going to be a slow start with a manager like Wade Elliott having just come in, so we'll have to see what happens from here. But there are a lot of fans kind of getting a bit worried, obviously, mainly because of the football that's being played and the tactics, rather than the stats and where we sit in the league itself.
I want to touch on Wade Elliott because when we filmed this the first time, I think it's actually a bit of a blessing in disguise. We can speak about Wade Elliott now because I think the last time we spoke, I'm trying to look at the fixture list and try and work out exactly where we were. Had you beaten Cambridge United by the time we spoke? I'm not entirely sure. A 2-2 draw against Port Vale. It might have been that might have been the last game. Either way, we spoke about Wade Elliott, and of course, like you mentioned there, you basically saying that he is very inexperienced, but that is, again, because he was a coach under Michael Duff and the sort of the system under Michael Duff. Of course, he's gone to Barnsley, as you mentioned, in the summer. Now he's sort of taken that big responsibility. And the word responsibility is the key word. It is going to be really important to see how he steps up. And like you say there probably is a little bit of, I'll say concern, probably a little bit of probably is a bit of an apprehensive feeling because, again, you don't know what you're going to get with somebody that's never managed before. But where do you stand on Wade Elliott? I know it's very early days. Do you feel as though he is someone that can? Have you seen enough from him so far to think that there is a bit of a potential managerial growth there? Or do you feel as though it might be a little bit too much of an ask?
So it's tough to call at this stage, especially ahead of
It is. It is.
a massive month coming up. But what I would say is, I think I feel as if I'm in a similar position to most other Cheltenham fans, is that when we have had good performances, we look really good. So, for example, let's take the Cambridge win, for example. We looked really good for most of the game. And then on Saturday, it all seemed to go down the drain against Accrington. And I think the lack of consistency from one game to another, and almost some of the things that Wade has been saying, doesn't really fill the fans with confidence. And I think it's... I'm all about giving managers chances and stuff, so I'm definitely not weighed out as of yet. I know that some fans actually are already, but obviously, as Charlton fans that go home and away, I think there's a fair reason to think that. But I think we've got a massive month coming up. We play, I think, 3 of the bottom 7 sides, so it's going to be a massive month. And I think, well, for the club, it would be too much of a gamble to change now. But I think this is his chance to prove himself over the next, few weeks, and fingers crossed that he does prove a lot of people wrong, because I think there is potential there. But I think come the end of October, I think that's when I can have a true kind of standpoint on it.
We talk about the fixtures there. We speak about, of course, the Derby game being postponed on Saturday, but then you say you got Shrewsbury at home. You then travel to you got Shrewsbury at home, Bolton at home, and then Sheffield Wednesday away, and then Bristol Rovers at home. And these next few games are very, very tough. If you played Derby in there as well, it would have been Derby, Shrewsbury, Bolton, Sheffield Wednesday in the block of 4. You still got to play 3 of those sides. It's going to be really difficult. I think you make a really good point. I think now it is a chance for Wade Elliott to prove himself. I think ultimately, I was speaking to a Sheffield Wednesday fan the other day, and we were speaking about the situation with Darren Moore, how I think Darren Moore, when they win, it's all flowers and roses. It's all going all in the right direction, more behind him. One bad result and everyone's like, I don't think he's the right manager for the job. Ultimately, he's going to get proved whether or not he is going to be the right man, and if they aren't where they want to be come the end of the season, most likely he will lose his job. But in the meantime, I think you've got to back him, and I think you've got to give him that support that as fans, I think you probably... I mean, you're saying it there. You're not asking for him to go at this stage. I think it is so early. It's 9 games. He's not bottom of the league. You have won games this season. Yes, you've lost 5, but you're not in the relegation zone. And like you say, that result and performance against Cambridge United was really promising. So yeah, I think it's quite fascinating to see how that's going to build. Looking ahead to the next game, then we've got a little bit of a wait, as of course a lot of clubs do, the international call-ups, postponing quite a few of the games. Shrewsbury at home. How are you feeling with that one? Shrewsbury are currently, they've actually picked up quite recently, haven't they? They're currently now 12th in the league. They lost in their last game, but before that, unbeaten in their last 3. How do you feel going into that game? That's going to be a challenge.
Yeah, Shrewsbury's a weird one, really, because they do sit, very, very mid-table currently.
Exactly mid-table.
The one thing with Shrewsbury is, I think we need to catch them on their off day, because there's I've been keeping a bit of an eye on Shrewsbury this season, because they've got quite an interesting squad, almost the dark horses in League One this season, if you like. Of course, ex-Cheltenham manager Steve Cottrell in charge, the man who got us into the Football League. I've been keeping a close eye on them, and it seems to be, obviously recently it's been a bit more consistent. I think they've won their last 3, or actually no, they lost against Port Vale, didn't they? But they've had a fair few decent results of late. But it seems to be kind of one game good performance, the next not so good, and it's tough. I think they're a very good side. And on paper, you look at their squad, they should really walk the park with us. But it's tough to call, because if we catch them on their off day, they have been prone to picking up a few dodgy results this season. Obviously, we drew against Port Vale away from home. They've just lost against them. So, you can take many different aspects and positives for both sides going into the next game. But like you say, there's a long wait, so a lot can change between now and then. But we'll have to wait and see what happens. But yeah, there's potential there to get a result. Of course, it's at Whaddon Road, which is always a plus. But we don't have too many fans, so I can't really say too much about that. But we always seem to do better at home. So we'll have to wait and see.
I mean, looking at Shrewsbury in a little bit more detail, you spoke about them being exactly mid-table and inconsistent. You're spot on. 3 wins, 3 draws, and 3 losses. It couldn't be more equal. 12 in the league as well. 12 points. I mean, it is symmetrical in all departments at Shrewsbury, but I think at the same time, like you say there, if you do catch them on an off day, and if you play well, that's going to be important. If you play well, like you did against Cambridge, there's no reason why you can't go there and win the game. I say go there. It's a home game as well, which will, of course, you'd like to think advantage you. Looking at the sort of the long term and the games coming up, sort of post Shrewsbury, I guess, in the larger block of fixtures, and the key players, I think we should watch out for. You should highlight, as external fans to highlight as a Cheltenham Town supporter. Who's impressed you so far this season the most? I've got a few names here that on SofaScore are giving them quite high ratings. But who would you go with? Because I think, of course, you watch the game and on the eye, you'll know much more than the statistics will show. What do you see?
So there's been a few players that have been extremely consistent so far this season. We've had a few that have had good performances every now and again, but I'd pick out maybe 4 names so far that have been very, very consistently strong since the start of the season. I think we'll start from defence. So we'll say 2 of the centre-backs in Lewis Freeston and Caleb Taylor. Caleb Taylor especially, the 19-year-old loanee from West Brom. I'll be surprised if he doesn't get recalled in January. He has been absolutely unreal. I've watched a fair bit of League One this season, and I'd actually go as far as saying he's probably the best centre-back all round in the league. And that sounds silly because he plays for Cheltenham Town and we sit just above the relegation zone, but he is outrageously good. I honestly think he's one of if not the best loanee we've ever had, and we've had some very, very good ones. Lewis Freeston, the improvement from last season is absolutely incredible. A lot of fans were calling for him to be released. When we renewed his contract, it was met by absolute uproar from a lot of our fans, and he's been honestly unreal since the start of the season. He's, other than Caleb Taylor, been the pick of the bunch in defence. I think there's calls for him to be the captain at times over Sean Long, who hasn't exactly impressed this season. Midfield wise, I think we've got to say Liam Sercombe. He's been absolutely brilliant. Obviously, he's an experienced player. He knows this league fairly well. He's played for Bristol Rovers, etc. Prior to us, but he's been brilliant, especially the last few games. I know on Tuesday night he scored an absolute belter of a half volley from outside the area against Walsall in the Papa John's Trophy. And then up top, it's got to be Dan Lundaloo. He's just such a good all-round striker. He scores goals. I think the one downside to him is he's got a bit of a hot head. He can get a bit tempered on the pitch when he gets a bit wound up. But he's an unreal player. He's got pace. He's got energy, strength, height. Good shot on him. He's got the lot, really. So, those few players are very, very capable lads, and hopefully they're going to do enough this season to keep us in the league and hopefully lead us to some good performances. But unfortunately, the squad seems to be a bit unbalanced at times.
Finally, then, Matt, I think you've analysed that squad, or your squad, really well. I think you've given real, I think you're sort of highlighting the players in those positions and I think giving a really good insight into the strengths of that squad. But ultimately, when we look at the entire squad, do you feel as though that squad is good enough to stay in the league? Is that one of the worst squads in the division? I'm not saying that sounded quite intense and quite aggressive, but what I mean by that is, have you basically got one of the worst squads? You feel as though that squad can stay in the league? That's an open question. I don't think you do. Out of interest, I don't think you do. I think there are worse squads in there, available. I think Cheltenham have got a fairly good squad in certain positions. The depth maybe could be questioned slightly, but do you feel as though that squad is good enough? Ultimately, that's the question, to stay in the league.
I mean, I think you actually touched on what I'm about to say, but I think starting 11, mid-table quality quite easily, to be honest. We've got some absolutely
depth, isn't it?
Incredible names, but as you said, it's the depth that's the worry. We've got we've got all right depth in midfield, to be fair. I mean, I know Elliot Bonds is injured at the moment, so we don't have too much depth, but what's more worrying is the defensive area. Like I said, we've got 2 brilliant centre-backs in Caleb Taylor and Lewis Freeston, but I think the only other 2 centre-backs we have currently in the senior squad is Grant Horton and Charlie Raglan, that don't usually start. Charlie Raglan's quite prone to injury, and Grant Horton's had next to no experience at League One level, so I think that's the one issue, and especially as we've conceded 12 so far this season, which isn't horrendous in 9 games for a side in our area of the table, but like you say, the depth is a bit of a worry, but in an ultimate answer to your question, I think starting 11, and including the players I mentioned, we've definitely got some serious quality. I think Wade Elliott just needs to, set up right and use this fantastic squad to his advantage, because we recruited well in January, towards the end of summer. I don't know why I've said January. Bringing in the likes of James Olayinka, Ryan Broom, two very strong midfielders, but the investment in the defence wasn't there, unfortunately. But yeah, it's the depth that's the worry, I think.
Yeah, I think you are right. Of course you're right. You're the fan of the football club. That's the way it is. Matt, it's been absolutely amazing to have you on again. Apologies for having to come in on again, but I think we've actually sort of maybe gotten a little bit of an insight into what the situation is now, because it has continued to be inconsistent. It was inconsistent last time we spoke, and it is still now, and you aren't in the relegation zone at the moment, and if you can pick up some good results, you've got a very difficult fixture list ahead of you, so that's going to be a challenge. I think Wade Elliott as a manager is going to be put to the test as well, along with, of course, that squad you've got. So it's going to be interesting. I'm looking forward to watching. I look forward to watching your content as well and how you follow it. And you should definitely check it out as well. Definitely, the link in the description. Matt's channel will be in there, and yeah, we're definitely going to check out. We'll be doing more in the future, 100%. I love, talking to Tom Chappell. Matt's going to be part of it now. He doesn't know it yet, but I'm sure we'll have people like that coming on. Alex Griffin we've had on before. I think it's really important, actually, to have sort of the League One content creators, I think, interact with each other and I think help each other out in different ways. So Matt is part of that. So definitely go and check his channel out and subscribe. Like I say, Cheltenham content. That's the place to be. Matt, absolute pleasure to have you on, mate.
Hey, top man, thank you very much.
Take care, lad.